Hello, everybody. Thanks a lot for joining today. And we'll give just one more minute or like couple of minutes for who is trying to join, and then we will kick off. Okay. Again, thanks a lot for joining today. It's a pleasure to meet you, to meet every one of you. And so today we'll talk about, this is our topic, debunking web application security myths. We'll talk about the misconception of web application security. When on the application security program level, then we'll go more into details when it comes to the dynamic application security testing, and then after that, what are the first steps of building an application security program, a mature application security program. First of all, please allow me to introduce myself. My name is Ali Marwani. I'm a solutions engineer at Invicti Security. I've always been enthused and interested in the cybersecurity space and digital transformation, which is my forte, let's say, during the last decade. I'm currently based in the island of Malta. It's a beautiful Mediterranean island. It's a nice country, especially in summer. I would really like to invite all of you to visit Malta. You'll really enjoy it, especially during these days. Just before we start our webinar and our discussion, I would like to quickly introduce what is Invicti, for whom they are not like aware a lot of what Invicti does. We are a global leader in web application security for the last 17 and 18 years, since 2005. We specialize in DAST solutions, dynamic application security testing tools. This is our experience in this space. We've been securing web applications and APIs dynamically throughout all these years. DAS solutions, interactive application security testing tools, the IS tools, and also SCAs, which are software composition analysis. We are based in Austin. We have offices all over the globe. We've been securing, as I mentioned, more than 800,000 applications. We're more than 400 employees, and we're talking about, as I mentioned, more than 3,000 customers. So this is the agenda. As I mentioned, we'll kick off with the top 5 myths about web application security. Then we'll talk about the misconceptions, the main 5 misconceptions about dynamic application security testing tools. And in the end, we'll talk about the first steps and the cornerstone, what are like the main foundations for you to start the right way in building an application security program, to have a mature and a robust application security program. So, top 5 myths. First of all, we do penetration testing that covers us. So, in reality, an organization that is conscious of cybersecurity and it starts with a penetration testing, this could be a good starting point. Means that this company or this organization is vigilant when it comes to cybersecurity and when it comes to penetration testing and securing their web assets. But having only penetration testing is not enough. So just to be clear, that I'm an evangelist and I'm a pro and I'm a supporter for any organization to have the full stack, the full toolkit when it comes to web application security. DAS solutions, penetration testers, SAST, software composition analysis, and IAST. But relying only on penetration testing, this is not enough. You need to include a DAS solution. You need to have a dynamic testing approach. And we don't mean by dynamic testing approach that it is intended to replace penetration testers or penetration testing, because you'll always have advanced vulnerabilities or business logic vulnerabilities that they require a penetration tester to do all these specifics, these advanced types of testings, because they need a human in order to find them, because it's much more into the logic of the application itself. But when it comes to other types of vulnerabilities and other types of security checks, it is good to have a DAS solution, a dynamic testing tool, in order to eliminate all these time-wasting tasks. Because instead of have a pen tester doing all these 1,000 checks every time you want to test the application or your web asset, why don't you replace it with a DAS solution, doing all these 1,000 checks in a matter of hours? And then after that, your pen tester will focus more on business vulnerabilities, business logic vulnerabilities, and 0 days vulnerabilities. So in this way, you'll be benefiting from a DAS solution, and at the same time, you'll be benefiting from the expertise of your penetration testers or any third party that you'll be dealing with for pen testing. So second myth, we protect the network perimeter so our apps are secure. Okay. During the last 10 years, and specifically with the last 3 years of this decade, the need of having a digital representation, a digital communication medium as an organization has been increased a lot because of those drastic changes and the dynamics of the business. So you needed to have like a website, a web application, like a medium that you can communicate with the external world, with your clients, with your customers, with your partners, and even with your employees, especially with all the pandemic that happened, working from home or working remotely. So you need something to communicate between you and your employees. And then also the need of the digital transformation of moving everything to the cloud also has increased. So now it's not only about scanning your network and securing your network, because all this business data which you own as a company, which could be also intellectual property and even other sensitive information, especially that if you offer us any system as a service, a SaaS, so all your clients, all your end users will be saving the information online, so you are accountable to secure this information. So all this architecture is now a prized commodity for cyber criminals. So now they started to focus more on attacking the web applications, to compromise data, for data breach. Now, that's why having the traditional type of defense to secure your network parameter, the classical way with like firewalls to filter network traffic, is no longer enough to ensure data security and proper access control. So you need to secure your web assets, because this is where the biggest harm is. Third thing, we shifted left, so we are fully covered now. So there's a misconception, especially like recently, that okay, we have only to shift left. When we shift left, when we secure, when we only include our security operations in the building process, then we're fine. This is a misconception, because if you don't do well on the right side, you cannot shift left. And shifting left and only covering this part of your SDLC means that you might be missing other vulnerabilities throughout the SDLC, throughout this life cycle. Because each environment, like let's say, for example, the scenario of having a dev environment and also having like a QA server or QA environment, staging environment, and then the pre-prod and the production server or the production environment. Each of these environments might have their own type of configuration as web server configuration, let's say, for example. So a dev environment, it is usually less secure, not a lot of security hardening to make things much more easier and flexible for developers in order to commit their code, in order to do this development. So you might have a lot of directives disabled, or like, let's say that possible sensitive directories is enabled, cookies without HTTP only flag is set, or maybe no HTTP redirection, or I don't know, direct directory listings. All these things might be enabled. But then when you jump to the QA environment or QA setup, you might also add some additional security like hardening or security policies, but still it's not that well secure. Then when you go to staging, then after that, the pre-prod, which should be like the optimal scenario, a pre-prod should be the identical of a production environment. So you have to cover all these environments. You have to scan every single part, every single stage of your SDLC, not only shifting left, because you will find like vulnerabilities. You'll be surprised of the number of vulnerabilities that you will detect on a dev, but they are not available on a QA. But also on the other side, you will find something that on QA, but is not available on the dev environment. So it's nice to cover. It's preferable to cover the full spectrum of your development cycle. So it's not only about shifting left, middle, and right. Secure everything to cover every single corner of your web application. Fourth misconception: adding security processes will slow us down. Okay, theoretically, yes, but it happens at the beginning when you start implementing a new tool, when you start implementing a new policy. And it's not only about security processes. Usually this resistance from users happens on any type of solutions. Even if you want to change, like, I don't know, the financial solution that you are using, or maybe, I don't know, the publishing system that you are using, any type of solution that you might replace or you might implement newly to your organization, you will face resistance. You will face users raising the voice that it might hinder our day-to-day process and day-to-day tasks. But it's a matter of time, because by time users will adapt, by times users will get used to it, and then in the end you have the return on investment. You will find out later, especially when it comes to security policies and security processes, you will find out later that implementing DAS solutions or implementing these types of security policies have saved you hundreds of hours that you were used to do, or you were used to like to work with when it comes to fixing those vulnerabilities and those costly late stage security fixes that they might be inefficient. Because okay, if you don't want to like implement any type of processes, okay, you're saving time during the development process, during the SDLC, throughout all the SDLC. But then after that, when you publish your application online and you like face an attack, and there's like a compromise or a data breach, like it will harm your reputation, etc., etc. You'll be losing money, you'll be losing reputation, and also you'll be losing clients. Then after that, you'll be running after this vulnerability to fix it on production while during the runtime. So this is costly for you. And if you want to compare the number of hours that you will save or the number of hours that you will be consuming on fixing those vulnerabilities, instead of implementing a security process, you'll find a lot of discrepancies. So it's better to have this process implemented. And in this way, you'll be shifting your environment or your full organization mindset into a security first mindset, and you'll be winning in the end. So myth 5, we know and control everything in our web environment, so we are not at risk. Okay. So for me, at least, there is no 100% secure application. You will still have like vulnerabilities that you are not aware of. It could be critical, high, medium, low, or even information, but it is in the end still a vulnerability. So to stay like security vigilant and security conscious, you should not take it for granted that, okay, my applications are secure. So I've covered everything, and in the end, I know everything. I have a full asset inventory for my applications, for my assets, so I'm fine. No, you need to always try to figure out what assets you own, to build an accurate and a solid asset inventory. Okay, it's not like focusing on your flagships, or focusing on the tip of the iceberg, but also you have to check everything under the tip of the iceberg, what is happening. So you always have to run like, I don't know, discovery checks of what you have as asset inventories, try to scan all the blind spots that were untested, because you might find a lot of vulnerable components and pages, or even you might discover entire sites that you are not aware of, especially because this shifting to the cloud, or this digital transformation, even virtualization that happened, it was a revolution in the last 10, 12, 15 years, virtualizing all these physical machines. So in this way, it's getting more complex, more sophisticated, because you have to know what you have on the cloud. You have to know what you have as physical servers. You know what you have to know what you have on hosted on a virtual machine, even containers, Dockers, Kubernetes, etc. So it's kind of complicated. So you might miss some of these assets. So that's why it's always recommended to always try to discover or to build an asset inventory. Don't take it for granted. So now we'll jump to the second topic, which is the top 5 myths about dynamic application security testing tools. Misconception 1, you can't get good coverage in application security with dynamic scanning. And this especially happens when a comparison falls between a DAST and a SAST. So DAST is a dynamic application security testing, and a SAST, which is a static application security testing, or a static code analysis, or when a comparison falls between a DAST and penetration testing. So when we talk about good coverage, when you run a scan with a DAST solution, you're having a tool that is imitating the behavior of a hacker. Okay, so it is trying to exploit anything that is available from an interface, and it is running the scan during the running time of the application. So, and it's not like the SaaS solution that only like it scans the applications from a code level. So it's not during the runtime, it's just the code. It's focusing on the code itself. So it's the post design of the application. So when you have a DAS solution detecting pages, slicing those pages and trying to group the components of these pages based on the type of this component. If it's a date picker, if it's a button, if it's a upload button, if it's a text feed, autocomplete feed, if it's like a link that might redirect it to another page. So trying to trigger the request lying under each of these components, try to fill these components with like some data that might achieve exploitations, clicking on buttons and links, redirecting you to other pages, and go deeper into the site structure of the application. This is where you can get good coverage. And this is what usually a DaaS solution does, especially when we're talking about modern DaaS solutions with more crawling enhancements, enhancement on the crawling performance, with like DaaS solutions that take into consideration the new changes and the new technologies happening in the market. Let's say, for example, single page applications, SPAs, is kind of tricky to scan. It's kind of tricky to cover a single page application. So when you have a modern DaaS solution covering these types of also of applications, so you're talking about a mature DaaS solution that will provide you with full coverage. False positives are just a part of application security life. This is the second misconception. So, yeah, I understand that. It was something annoying when that solution started to emerge in the cybersecurity space. Especially like because false positives is a pain, not even with DaaS solutions, even if you have pen testers, third parties running security auditing or penetration testing, even SaaS solutions, yeah, you have false positives. This is something that inevitable, but having a reliable scanning tool, also a modern scanning tool that its core functionality is that solution, is dynamic scanning. It's focusing on dynamic scanning. This is where their expertise is. Like, let's say, for example, we as Invicti, we have a technology, it's a proprietary technology called proof-based scanning. So proof-based scanning, the purpose, and by the way, you can find an interesting white paper about proof-based scanning and really interesting figures how proof-based scanning has eliminated the rate of false positives. Okay, you can find it on the deck here, and also you can find it on Invicti's website. But what is a proof-based scanning? Proof-based scanning is done in order to eliminate the need for manual verification. Because how do you make sure that this is not a false positive? When you get a report for the vulnerabilities detected, you have to check them. Okay, you go for the first vulnerability, you go try to reproduce this vulnerability just for confirmation. Okay, and then after that you label it as a false positive or as a exploitable vulnerability, an organic actual vulnerability. So the proof-based scanning is done in order to eliminate the manual verification, okay, and try to exploit those vulnerabilities. It's not only about detecting the vulnerabilities, but trying to exploit it, of course, harmlessly. And then after that, giving you the proof, providing you with the proof that, okay, look, we have detected this vulnerability, and this is how we exploited this vulnerability. These are the steps, and this is the outcome. So then this is confirmed. This is a vulnerability. Since I mentioned the white paper, just like to give you a number that with proof-based scanning and based on an analysis of the performance of this proof-based scanning and the results, we had automatic confirmation of an accuracy of 99.98% of the vulnerabilities detected so far in our tools. Myth 3, you can't use dynamic application security testing in development. Okay. Modern DaaS solutions. And this is something that I covered at, I think it was myth 1 or myth 2 from the first topic, that you have to cover, try to cover as much as possible all the stages in your SDLC. And this is the beauty of a DaaS solution, because you can run dynamic scans especially modern DAS solutions, dynamic scans on every single stage of your SDLC. Why? Because modern DAS solutions can be implemented easily. It's only about like adding a domain name, IP address, and then adding authentication, running a scan, boom, that's it. So you can implement it at any stage. In addition to that, modern DAS solutions, you can implement a modern DAS solution in the pipeline itself. You can integrate with CI/CDs. So you can trigger scans even when you are in the extreme left of your spectrum. And when we're talking about modern DAS solutions, we also take into consideration, or you have to take into consideration, that you need to have this flexibility in running scans, and not every time I have to run a full scan on my pipeline. Because, okay, let's say that you have a cadence of a weekly cadence of like issuing new builds. So running a full scan every week on a build that has like some slight changes is inefficient, especially if the scan might take quite good time if you have a big application. So you need an incremental scan. So this is something also that you have to take into consideration. This is something that should be available in a DAS solution. An incremental scan should be clever enough to scan only the changes, the modified files, the newly added files and pages to your application. Also, modern DAS solutions will facilitate integrating with issue trackers. And when talking about issue trackers, we're not only about talking about one directional communication, but also bi-directional communication. So instead of finding all these vulnerabilities manually in your ticketing system or your issue tracking system, it is nice to have this type of integration where you can create workflow policies. Once the scan is done, those vulnerabilities should be pushed automatically to the issue tracker. Developers, they can simply access that issue tracker. They will see the dashboards, the information that they will see will be typical and as similar as what they will have if they access the DAS solution itself. So yeah, you can cover every single stage of your development cycle. Okay, so point 4, dynamic testing is not needed as we have SAST and SCA. I think we have covered some good points when it comes to that solution, and we are shedding the light and like showing you the importance of having a DAS solution. So let's now talk about SAST, SCA, and ANADAST. So web applications, usually when you want to put your first footprints in an application security process or program, you need something simple. You need a tool or an approach that might not cause you a lot of resistance. You need a tool that is easy to adapt, to foster. So you need a starting point, especially if you don't have like the needed skill set, or if the employees that you have, they don't have all the required skill set when it comes to security. So that solution is a good starting point because it is easy to implement. It is an effective starting point for any organization. It is, as I mentioned, it's easy to implement. It fosters scalability. It offers a lot of integrations, as I mentioned also a while ago. And in the end, it will be scanning your application during the runtime, not only scanning the code itself. And when we're talking, let's talk about like Invicti tools. We're talking about proof-based scanning, which is an add-on. And this could be, it's not only an add-on, it's a flagship. It's one of the main features that we have as Invicti. So having less and less and less false positives with a user-friendly and intuitive tool are one of the pillars of a successful application security program. It will make security something fun for users. not only a status quo that you are obliged to implement this type of security programs. Then DAS is only about running vulnerability scans. No, it's not only about running vulnerability scans. There are a lot of other like values, a lot of metrics that can be quantified from a DAS solution. Let me give you just an example or a scenario. You're like an organization that has 50 websites or 50 web assets, okay? Like 5 websites, those five websites, they like utilize 5 microservices, and then after that you have also separate APIs that you use, you have your web applications, etc., etc., etc. A lot, internally and externally, because nowadays it's not only about having web applications that are available online or for the public, but also you might have web applications that are used internally within your departments. It is related to your day-to-day organizational workflows and process. So 5 websites, 5 microservices, we're talking about 25. So 25 in total as web assets. Let's say that you have started a scan with a DAS solution, and then a DAS solution has detected 10 issues per target. So in total, you're talking about 250 vulnerabilities. So 250 vulnerabilities, it's a shocking number. It's a huge number. But those 250 vulnerabilities, because you are using a modern DAS solution, they were detected in a matter of hours because it's an automated scan. But imagine that those 25 assets, and you will have the luxury, by the way, to run scans on a daily basis. Every time you think that you want to run a scan, you can just, boom, start a scan. Imagine that if you just want to limit yourself just with pen testing, and I need to reiterate, to second this, that I'm a pro with having the full toolkit. It's not only about DAS solutions, but DAS solution, as I mentioned, it's a good starting point. So imagine that you want to detect all these vulnerabilities in a matter of hours with pen testers. That would be crazy. So here we're talking about the time to value. This is one of the things that you have to take into consideration. Okay, then those vulnerabilities detected, and thanks to the proof-based scanning, you will get the confirmation on each of these vulnerabilities, the certainty for each vulnerability. And at the same time, with modern DAS solutions, you are getting all the needed information to fix those vulnerabilities. So instead of going online, looking for like guidelines, looking for the classifications, the scoring, the best practices, and so on and so forth, this tool will be providing all this information for you. So here also you have the time to fix, which is also a very important aspect that you have to take into consideration. So short time to value, short time to fix, how many vulnerabilities introduced, okay, compared to the fixed ones, because also with modern DAS solutions, it will show you like, okay, in the previous vulnerability, in the previous scan, you have detected this number of vulnerabilities. Now with the latest scan, we have detected this number. So you'd be able to also to track the performance of the teams themselves. If are they like committing or applying secure code time after time? Are they enhancing their way how they are coding, etc.? So these are like metrics that you can follow as well. This is one of also the aspects that you have to take into consideration. Also, how easy the tool is, and how to what extent this tool will foster orchestration and streamlining, integration, scalability, how accurate the information are from the tool that you will get. So these aspects you have to take into consideration, and then you will figure out that that solution is not only about running vulnerability scans, it's about saving you time, it's about efficiency, it's about integration, it's about educating the teams and having a security first mindset in your organization. So in the end, as a total, these metrics will save you time, and in the end you'll be saving money. So I think this is one of the most important aspects that any organization looks for: saving money efficiently, but at the same time getting the best and the most out of the security program. So then we'll talk about the first steps, the footprint of having a successful, robust, and a mature application security program. Test everything. Don't prefer any application over other applications, because you won't even imagine that a small application that you're not taking care of might do a lot of harm to your organization. So scan everything, every single web asset you own, regardless if it's a web application, if it's a website, or even if it's an API. Scan everything. Try to protect yourself on every single front. Don't ignore, don't skip. Even that you might say, look, I mean, I don't want to bombard and bombard my developers with a lot of vulnerabilities, with like useless applications, legacy applications, or even like applications that I'm not even using. I don't want to like burn out my developers. So let me focus on the flagship of my company. Let me focus on like the application that they generate revenue for me. No, this is a misconception, because developers, they don't get annoyed if they receive a lot of vulnerabilities or bugs, because in the end they own the code. They are accountable for building this code. So if you don't highlight the flaws where the flaws are, you're not even like serving the developers. You have to give them what you detect. Developers, they get agitated when you give them false alerts. When you report a bug that is not actually a bug, it's that you cannot reproduce, okay? Or if you give them false positives, this is where the developers get annoyed. So having a DAS solution, a modern DAS solution with a proof-based scanning, pushing onto the confirmed vulnerabilities is something will be favorable by developers. Then test multiple points in the SDLC. As I mentioned, you have to cover all your applications, but at the same time, you try to cover every single stage of your SDLC. Try to secure every single stage. In the end, at a modern DAS solution, you'll have the luxury to run a scan anytime you want. So run a scan on every single stage. It won't harm you. Then step 3, test as often as you need at no extra cost, which is at the point that I've covered just a while ago in the previous slide. You have a DAS solution, run the scans, because you have the option, the flexibility to run the scans as much as you want. Try to detect as much vulnerabilities as possible, and no need to like having like bunch of tools at the same time running. Each one is serving like a specific purpose. A modern DAS solution can give you a holistic approach for security scanning. Deploy rapidly and get real value fast. So this is one of the main aspects, or one of the main winning points of having a DAS solution, is how easy and how fast that you can implement a DAS solution. This is a good starting point. And I think it's obvious throughout all this webinar, I have mentioned that this is a good starting point. It's easy to install, easy to deploy, easy to run. Even when you want to run a scans, it is handy. And it doesn't require those like deep technical knowledge, because it's simple, just add the URL, add the authentication, boom, run a scan. Now, if you want to go deeper, yeah, those features and those settings are available in a modern DAS solution, where you can change the settings, the crawling settings, the scanning settings, how aggressive the scan will be. If you want like specific type of security checks, if you have like some complex authentication process, if you use any type of authentication or authorization, all these specifics can be configured in a Dast solution. But if you want to go as a good starting point, there are simple ways, simple steps to deploy a Dast solution. Unify application security testing. So you need like to centralize everything. You need a reliable, up-to-date DAS solution that will avoid you like implementing a lot of like tools, as I mentioned, that they serve specific purposes, but no, one solution that will foster the four pillars like coverage, accuracy, automation, continuous scanning or continuity, a tool that is always up to date, a tool that you know that there's a huge team working tirelessly to find the latest trends in the security or the cybersecurity space, trying to give you the most efficient and effective and accurate security checks, giving you the latest technologies in the market, trying to protect all your assets, because we know that now we have a massive fingerprints exported to the internet. Mainly everything, a lot of assets are online. A tool that knows that environments, application environments are changing rapidly, okay? And a tool that will give you the options so you can be proactive with all these changes in the market. Proof-based scanning proves that those vulnerabilities are exploitable. A tool that will fine-tune your organizational and industrial practices, okay? A tool that will also offer you scalability. So all these tools are offered in a modern DAS. All these features are offered in a modern DAS solution. So yeah, you have to unify your application security testing. And in order not to get lost, not to confuse your end users, the users that they are actually managing those tools, your security teams, your developers. So this is it for today. Again, thanks a lot for joining this webinar. I really enjoyed it. Now we'll just give some time for questions. Okay, so we have, so in one place you said something about avoiding false positives. All security vendors are saying they have fewer false positives or no false positives. So how does this work in your product? Okay. This is a good point to raise. Because, okay, having this false positive that, yeah, zero false positives, we eliminate false positives, is a catchy phrase. It rings a bell. It is attractive. So that's why usually a lot of like vendors, they use this as one of their powerful points for their tools in order to market their tools. Because we all know that false positives are a major frustration and a burnout, but you need to know how this tool is dealing with false positives. How is this tool is offering you the accurate information if this is a false positive or if this is an actual vulnerability. And and is this tool offering you like the confidence rate? Let's say that it is a confidence rate or the confirmation. Is it offered by like a phrase? Like, is it like low, high, medium, or is it offered and given, provided by numbers, figures? Because phrases could be misinterpreted. If I tell you that, okay, the confidence rate is high, but that doesn't mean that it's 100% accurate, because high, you still have a window or a margin that it could be a false positive. So this is one of the things. Now, for example, in Invicti, we give you numbers, figures. So if we say that it's 100%, means there is no way for this vulnerability to be a false positive. It's an organic exploitable vulnerability. This is the first thing. The second thing is that what we do as well, once we detect the vulnerability, we don't stop at this point, okay? But instead, we try to exploit this vulnerability. We try to show you how the application reacts with the payload that we have sent. And based on how the application reacts, and based on our outcome of trying to reproduce or trying to exploit this vulnerability by sending harmless attacks, okay, we identify if this is a false positive or not. And then we show you the proof of exploit. We show you the details of our approach on how we attack or we have exploited this vulnerability. So in a single time, how many number of scans are possible with Invicti? So you have unlimited number of scans. So that's why, and this is something I mentioned, you have the luxury to run as much scans as you want. So if you have 25, 50, 100 assets, you can, boom, kick off scans at the same time. This is why the time to value, short time to value and short time to fix falls in our tools, is with the unlimited number of concurrent scans that you can run. So I need to know, if we use your tool, then do we still need to use static code analysis tools, or it's not needed? So I would like to mention that again. It is, if you want to get the optimal application security program, I'm always in favor of implementing any tool that will scan my applications. SAST, DAST, IAST, and SCAs, software composition analysis. Of course, an SCA could be an add-on or a plugin, but as a starting point, I always prefer to start with a DAST solution for a lot of reasons. I'll just say them again briefly. Easy to implement, okay. Easy to use, intuitive, user-friendly, of course. You have unlimited number of scans that you can run. And at the same time, which is the core, with a DAST solution and Invicti tools, of course, aside of the proof-based scanning, which is one of the main and key differentiators between Invicti and other tools, but in addition to that, with our tools or even any DAST solution, they try to behave like how a hacker would behave, or even a penetration tester would behave. And it will scan the applications during the runtime. Because, I mean, most of the all the exploitations are done by hackers, and they usually exploit applications or assets when the application is on run mode, if it's not during the running time. So it scans the application on the runtime. Now, a SaaS solution is implemented if you want to scan the code itself, the code that you are writing, not whilst the application on runtime. It's just post-design. After you design your application, then you can run a SaaS, run a scan with a SaaS. But once the application is exposed online and you start having users accessing your application, a dust. This is why a dust solution is very important, because it is imitating what a hacker would do. So what is more preferable for you, to get what a hacker might harm you or not? So you have to go with a dust solution as a first step. Then once you see that everything is settled down, then you can go with other like options to reinforce your current application security program. But always start with a dust solution. Okay, does penetration testing mean both SaaS and DAS, or it is actually a modern DAS only? So penetration testing is it is manual penetration testing. It's getting ethical hackers, let's say, and try to exploit or try to attack or try to find vulnerabilities in your application. It's not something automated. Tools, SaaS or DAS, they automate those types of security checks. But of course, a lot of consults, security consults, a lot of security service providers, even penetration testers, they use DAS solutions as well. Because as I mentioned, DAS solutions, of course, they use DAS solutions as part of their of what they do. But when you go with the business specifics or the business logic of the tools, if you want the penetration testers to focus on specific types of specific types of workflows or processes or a specific type of vulnerabilities, zero-day vulnerabilities, yeah, you need to have a penetration testers, because I mean, it's not that artificial intelligence that a tool that might discover those 0 days vulnerabilities, or if a vulnerability is detected or exploited through a specific business sequence, you need penetration tests. But as I mentioned, some pen testers, they use DAS solutions because to avoid running those thousands of checks manually, they just run a DAS solution and then they focus on those specifics that I mentioned, business sequences or logics and 0-day vulnerabilities. Now, what else we have? Why SCA from Invicti is different from others. So, as I mentioned, a software composition analysis, when you have a solution, a DAS solution that, or a company that, or a vendor that offers a DAS solution, that all its focus on how a DAS solution works and trying to build all the components, all the additional components based on what a DAS solution. So the DAS solution is controlling every single piece of this tool. If you integrate an IaaS, as I mentioned, that also we have an IaaS, but the IaaS that we have is a true IaaS that runs based on what a DAS solution does. Also the software composition analysis. So getting into all these details of the web environment itself, from a DAS perspective, the software composition analysis, the SCA component will give you also accurate results of all like the outdated libraries, of the components that you are using, the technologies that you are using in your tool. Okay, we have also so what we have also more questions. You've talked about best practices and it's all very well and good, but I'm still not clear what exactly your company does to help with all this. Is there anything you need about your approach that makes it all somehow easier to implement? Okay. So let's start from what we offer. We offer DAS solution. So DAS solution, dynamic application security testing tools, they follow the black box testing approach, which is what usually penetration testing testers does. Because, okay, you give them username and password. This is the interface. This is the landing page of our application, the login page of our application. That's it. That's the only thing that I give you. You do your job. Try to figure out and detect the vulnerabilities. So a DAS solution does this. It runs scans, security checks dynamically, thousands of security checks. Okay. So it is saving you time. Instead of having like, let's say 20 penetration testers, a DAS solution can run those scans concurrently. And then you can benefit from your penetration testers to focus more on, as I mentioned, 0 days vulnerabilities, on like specific types of vulnerabilities, on like enhancing the type of penetration testing. So yeah, they can focus more on the business logics, on the specific sequences and workflows in order to detect the vulnerability. So in this way, you are efficiently and effectively benefiting from your penetration tests instead of wasting their time doing tasks, recursive tasks that could be, or that is like replaced by a DAS solution. So this is as a starting point. Then we have is the proof-based scanning. As I mentioned, one of the main issues in this in the web application world, in the security world, is proof-based is false positives, because it happens a lot. And of course, it happens to you. When you ask me this question, I know that you know about that. You know what a false positive is. So even when you have penetration testers, even when you deal with third parties, when they send you a report of all the vulnerabilities detected, you are doubling the work, because you are also consuming double the time trying to figure out if this vulnerability is exploitable or not. Then after that, you push the ones that they are confirmed to your developers to start fixing those vulnerabilities. But this is the time wasted here. With the proof-based scanning, okay, you will get more accurate results, because we will tell you what is a confirmed, what vulnerabilities are confirmed and what vulnerabilities might be a false positive, and the ones that they are false positive, we don't even report it to you. Also, what our tools might help you in is with your like obtaining regulations, the journey of obtaining regulations. If like you want to go with like OWASP, you want to be like compliant with OWASP standards, if you want to be compliant with PCI DSS, HIPAA, ISO 27001 certificates, etc. So you can run scans with our solutions with Invicti. Then you can generate reports based on these compliance standards, and then they will help you, so you can identify where the weaknesses are, where the vulnerabilities are, so you can fix them before you go with your compliance journey, before you apply for the compliance for the compliance certificates. So this also will help you a lot, instead of like going for a certificate, then they find vulnerabilities, then you start the journey from the beginning, from scratch. In addition to that, you have integrations. So it will also help you to integrate with not only CI/CDs and issue trackers, the ones that I've mentioned, but also with communication platforms, with project management tools, with identity management. Even you will have an access to an API, so you can build your own integration and custom scripts. This is how flexible it is. So you can implement it in every single corner and every single step in your SDLC, and even every single need for your internal departments. In addition to that, language agnostic, technology agnostic. This is why, and this is answering why we have why SCA our SCA is also powerful, not only our DAST, because it is technology and language agnostic. It doesn't matter the technology that you are using, as long as the application is reachable, or we can communicate with your application through HTTP methods, then we can scan your application. So This is how powerful Invicti tools are. So I think we're done for today. Thanks a lot for joining. We ran out of time, and hopefully we'll see you with in future webinars. Thank you. And just to mention that anyone for all the questions that we didn't answer, our team will reach out to you with all the answers. Thank you so much.